This is episode 30. Tonight, I want to talk about examples. And I have a little story back here. Once upon a time, there was a database with backups untested. We know what happens next, right? If you're in any kind of data, you know what happens next. You try to restore it, it doesn't work. You tell the story, you hook people with a little bit of story and a little bit relatable to anybody in any kind of environment, or really any sort of business. The story, if you can tell it the best, if it pertains to everybody, everybody knows about backups, everybody knows the aggregations, everybody knows all the basics. And some things will be specific to an industry. In our industry, we have to do certain things. We have to do this, we have to do that, as opposed to general knowledge. But general knowledge. And but we want to make sure that we've hooked people, we've brought them in, and then our examples are simple. Like you could take, and I could back up a terabyte database, and you could show the flaws and then show you places. Give people things they can repeat. If it's a query, give them a little query that they can do. I'm going to do a series soon on window functions. And my table is going to be like 10, 15 rows long to show the windows, the way you can move through data and move around. But then I'll do big examples. So I'll have, AdventureWorks, or I'll get another database. Or I think there's somewhere people have like a really big version of AdventureWorks. And so they can go through that and see lots of rows and see how it performs. But you need an example that someone can really see, can really work through. I've seen people do things like, what happens if your database is corrupted? How do you fix it? You have a very small database, you corrupt it in a certain way. I can tell you how. I don't really know how. I've sort of kept away from that. I know the internals of things well enough to advise on stuff, but I don't know them well enough to pull out a hex editor and start screwing with the internals. Don't know it. But this is true in any environment. So if you're working on a C# program, make a small C# program. Make something that works very small. Make a web page that's reasonable size. If you're going to show people how to format something, don't give an example that's like 600 pages long, because we get lost in that and we get bored. People get bored really quickly when they're reading blogs because they came there for a solution. And if you can give them that solution, tie them in, tell them why you're looking, tell them that you know their problem. You know a problem like theirs. Like this example, I didn't have a backup. What can I do to fix my data? Well, other than hope and, work on your resume a little bit, there are things you can do to get back a database that's been corrupted. They're not perfect. They're not, the best solution. Having a backup obviously is the best solution, but they are good. So it's up to you to tie that, expand it mentally to people's needs. Part of this came up when someone had written a set of, and this happens on LinkedIn a lot, and it starts me thinking, why go there? See what people are saying, see if they're saying things right, try to help them learn things, but also so I can see what they're doing. So there was an example of, don't do this in the CTE. You don't use a drive table, use a CTE because it's somehow faster. Filtering early is always something someone puts in there. And there's a lot of these kind of half-truths that are out in the world because people think they're the case. And I have a complete topic on that later. You need to break it down to the smallest possible example of something that will do the thing you're trying to teach people. So if you're trying to show people that putting a query up in the CTE will be faster than putting it in the regular query, do that and show any improvement. You've got to have that example. Otherwise, you're probably wrong. I've been wrong many times. So don't think I'm pointing fingers. We've been wrong many times. A lot of times I catch my own wrongness because I'm testing it. But by having an example that's small enough and easy enough to work with, I learn those things with repetition, testing, right? And then eventually it gets in here and I go, oh, that's how this works. How cool. Like I said in the last entry, take it farther. Take it farther. Start. If one row works, do two, two to three. If three, 300, 300, 3,000, 300,000, 300,000, and make those things available to download. I tried this. Here's my numbers. You go download and try it too. Anything you can give the people to work with. But make sure you've hooked them and then you've taught them the lesson at a level you can do it, and then expand it and then give them the tools to expand it themselves. Then you've got something that not only can the person see, you know what I want, here's how it works, and here's how you've shown that it'll actually do it. But you got to start simple. Your story needs to be relatable. Doesn't, by the way, need to be true. It needs to be true enough. In fact, sometimes be careful about being too true. I've said this before, but don't be so true that anybody in the world can connect your story to them. So just take all the things you've gone through and make a story that fits that, unless you've gotten permission, right? Real stories, real case studies are excellent. Usually real stories and real case studies are actually true, right? And they're positive. We don't usually tell everybody the negative. So that's it. That's all the example talk I will talk about for now. I'm sure it'll come back up anytime I have an idea that works about examples. I'm gonna share it because it's probably the biggest thing I think what makes a technical blog. And it's one of the things that people really hate about LinkedIn posts is when someone says, filter early. If you put the where clause in the CT instead of the join, it'll be faster. And then we all go, no, it won't. And if you have an edge case, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's occasional. Maybe it's just your machine. And that's another problem for another day. All right. Talk to you later. Thank you. Get out there, write some blogs.